The dropship's hull screamed as it breached Xylos 9's atmosphere. 49 non-human cadets braced in crash webbing, their species, elite. Vrix warriors with chitinous blades, Threxian scouts with thermal vision, Draxian berserkers with 4 hearts. And 1 human. Cadet Alara Vance sat in the rear, her legs not quite reaching the floor. Her file read, Terran, baseline endurance, no natural weapons, psychological profile, high adaptability, stubborn. The Draxian beside her core snorted a cloud of sulfur. They send a pink worm to die with us. Insulting. Alara didn't reply. She was watching the viewport. Xylos 9 rotated below, a bruised purple globe, its surface a maze of razor jungles, acid seas, and mountain spines that scraped the stratosphere. Tier 5 Death World. Galactic rating scale, 1 to 5, with 5 being certain extinction. The Federation used it as a punishment. Today, it was a graduation exercise. 50 cadets in, 3% survival rate. The pilot's voice crackled. Dropping to 500 meters, you have 30 days. Extraction at the northern beacon. Don't die before we get bored watching. The bay doors blew open, wind like a blade. Below, a canopy of violet trees that bled corrosive sap, ground that steamed with fungal spores, and the distant shriek of something large moving fast. Go, go, go. Cadets leaped. Alara didn't hesitate. She tucked and rolled into the canopy, branches shredding her uniform's outer layer. She hit mud, warm, organic, alive. Around her, the others landed in clusters, already shouting over comms. 3 dead on impact, a Threxian reported. Acid pool, they dissolved. Kor landed 10 meters away, his 4 arms already extended, bone blades clicking. Form up, we move to high ground now. But the planet had other plans. The ground shuddered. Roots erupted, not plant matter but muscle. A burrower 20 meters long, segmented like a centipede made of obsidian. It snatched a Vrix mid-sentence. Crunch. Silence. Run, someone screamed. They ran. Alara ran too, but not blindly. She watched. The burrower didn't chase randomly, it followed heat signatures. The Draxians burned hottest. 2 more died. By nightfall, the group had split. The stronger species had outpaced the slower, abandoning the wounded. Alara found herself alone by a shallow cave, her uniform torn, her side bleeding from a thorn graze. No rations, no weapon but a ceramic knife. She knelt, pressed her palm to the soil. It was warm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Then she smiled. The others had run from the planet. Alara Vance had grown up on a post-collapse Earth, where you ate what you killed and slept where the radiation was lowest. Xylos 9 wasn't a death world. It was a farm. She pulled out her knife and began to carve. The alien cadets huddled in a collapsed lava tube, 27 survivors now. 17 dead in 6 hours. Kor had taken command, not because he was wise but because he was loudest. We build a barrier, he ordered, pointing with a bloodied blade. Threxians scout perimeter. Vrix, gather wood, move. No one moved. The Threxian scouts hadn't returned from the last patrol. Their thermal vision had betrayed them. Xylos 9's flora emitted false heat signatures, luring them into the mouths of ambush predators. A young Vrix named Tilan sat in the corner, trembling. We should not have left the human. Kor turned, mandibles clicking. The human is food by now. Outside, the night came alive. Not darkness, hunger. Bioluminescent fungi pulsed like glow lures, attracting flyers with razor beaks. The ground crawled with scavengers the size of dogs, their skeletons visible through translucent skin. Then they heard the scream. Not a human scream. A burrower's death cry, wet, gurgling, cut short. Kor went rigid. That's not possible. He crept to the tube's entrance. The others followed, terror and curiosity warring. What they saw stopped their hearts. The human girl stood over the burrower's corpse, knee-deep in its split belly. Her knife was buried to the hilt in its nerve cluster. She'd lured it into a deadfall pit using strips of her own uniform as bait, heat-trapping fabric. Then she dropped a boulder on its head. But that wasn't what made the cadets freeze. She was harvesting. Quickly, efficiently, she sliced open the burrower's venom sacs, emptied them into hollowed gourd fruits, and tied the ends with vine. Acid grenades. She cut strips of chitin for armor. She cracked open the chest cavity and pulled out the heart, still beating, rich with nutrients. Then she looked up. Her face was streaked with purple blood. Her eyes were calm. She saw the alien cadets watching from the lava tube, and she didn't wave. She didn't call for help. She went back to work. Kor growled, ashamed of his earlier words. "We should bring her in, she has food." Tilan whispered, "She doesn't need us." That was the wound. The human, the weakest, had not just survived, she had thrived, and she hadn't come to them. Elara finished harvesting, stood, and began walking toward the opposite ridge, away from the lava tube, away from the group. Kor's pride broke. "Wait." She stopped, didn't turn. "You'll die out there alone," he said. Elara tilted her head. "You're the ones who are alone. I have the planet." She walked into the dark. Behind her, the cadets listened to the night's symphony, the clicks, the screams, the wet sounds of feeding. One by one, they looked at Kor. He had no answer. At the ridge's crest, Elara paused. She could hear them whispering, arguing, blaming. She could also hear something else, a heavier tread, deliberate, packing the perimeter of the lava tube. Not a burrower, something with intelligence. She pulled out one of her acid grenades and waited. Dawn came, toxic, yellow fog that burned lungs and turned exposed skin to blisters. The cadets had lost 4 more during the night. 2 had wandered into a spore field and suffocated from the inside. 1 had simply vanished from the middle of the group, pulled into the earth by something silent. The 4th had been Kor's second in command, found with his chest cavity hollowed and a single word scratched into the rock beside him: pest. Elara had seen the word too. She was 3 clicks north, standing over a second burrower kill, this one deliberately disemboweled and arranged in a spiral pattern. A message, a territorial marker. She knelt beside the carcass and ran her fingers over the claw marks. 3 digits, opposable, tool users. The fog had dampened her visibility, but her ears caught the faint rhythm of drums in the distance, not celebration. Summoning. "They're hurting us," she whispered. The realization hit cold. The predators from the first day hadn't been random. They were directed. The planet's apex species was using the local fauna as attack dogs, driving the cadets toward a central killing ground. She stood and looked south. The lava tube, where the aliens cowered, was directly in the path. "Stupid," she muttered, "they'll be slaughtered." She could have walked away, could have found her own extraction point, let the aliens serve as bait. But that wasn't how humans had survived the collapse. They had survived by remembering one thing: a tribe of one dies alone. Elara ran. She reached the lava tube as the first wave struck. Not burrowers, Xylosians. They emerged from the fog on 6 legs, their torsos upright, 4 arms wielding stone-tipped spears coated in neurotoxin. Chitinous plating covered their faces, but their eyes, dozens of them, clustered like grapes, held cold intelligence. The cadets were fighting but losing. Kor had lost 2 arms. Tilan was pinned beneath a collapsed rock formation. A Threxian's thermal vision was useless against creatures that matched the ambient temperature exactly. Elara didn't charge, she threw. 3 acid grenades sailed in a perfect arc, bursting over the Xylosian front line. Chitin melted. Screams, not animal but sentient, pierced the fog. The Xylosians recoiled, dragging their wounded into the mist. Silence. The cadets stared at Elara as she walked through the carnage, her boots crunching on dissolved chitin. 4 minutes until they regroup, she said. No greeting, no heroics. You have 2 choices: stay here and die like livestock, or follow me and learn to become what they fear. Kor, bleeding from a dozen wounds, dropped to one knee. Not defeat, respect. What are you? Alara picked up a fallen Zalosian spear, tested its balance, and met his gaze. Adaptable. She turned and walked into the fog. Behind her, 23 alien cadets, warriors bred for pride and strength, rose and followed the human girl without a word. The city was a trap. Alara saw it the moment they crested the ridge. The spire's bioluminescence wasn't decorative. It was a beacon. Every predator within 50 clicks would converge on this location within hours. They're not trying to eat us, she said low to Kor. They're trying to process us, like waste. The Draxian, now two-armed and hollow-eyed, nodded slowly. Then we go around. No, we go through. She had already mapped it in her head. The Zalosian city was built over a geothermal vent network, tunnels that ran beneath the surface, hot enough to kill the fungal spores that clogged the air, stable enough to traverse. If they could reach the central shaft, they could climb up on the opposite side and shave 3 days off the journey to extraction. But the tunnels belonged to the Queen's brood. Alara gathered the survivors, 23 now, each species carrying wounds both physical and spiritual. They had been elite. Now they were ragged. She didn't offer comfort. She offered a plan. We move in silence. No comms, no light. We follow the heat, not our eyes. If you see movement, you freeze. If you hear breathing, you hold yours. The Zalosians track by vibration and scent. I've coated us in burrower musk. It will mask you for 1 hour. After that, you're exposed. Avrix raised a trembling claw. What if we're separated? Alara looked at her, really looked. The Vrix were proud warriors, but this one had lost her entire clutch sister on the first night. Then you die, Alara said, not cruel, factual, so don't get separated. They descended. The tunnels were hell. Heat shimmered off the walls, hot enough to blister exposed skin. The air smelled of sulfur and old blood. Every dozen meters they passed egg chambers, Zalosian nurseries, the pupae twitching inside translucent sacs. The cadets walked on eggshells, literally. One cadet broke. A Threxian scout named Vex, his thermal vision overwhelmed by the geothermal heat, stumbled and put his hand against a nursery sac. The pupae inside screamed. The tunnels came alive. Zalosian warriors erupted from side passages, spears raised, mandibles dripping venom. The cadets fought desperately, silently, because noise meant more. Alara didn't join the melee. She ran to the central shaft, found the geothermal release valve and wrenched it open. Superheated steam exploded outward, filling the tunnel. The Zalosians recoiled. Their chitin couldn't handle sudden thermal shock. The cadets fled through the gap, dragging their wounded. When they emerged on the city's far side, 2 more were dead, but the rest, 21, were alive. And Alara had what she came for, a Zalosian queen's molted carapace, still humming with residual pheromones. She held it up. With this, we don't run from them, we walk through them. Kor stared. You planned this. I planned to survive. She slung the carapace over her shoulder and pointed north. Extraction is 4 days. Let's move. Behind them, the city's beacon flickered and changed color, from white to red. The Queen was hunting now. 3 days later, 11 cadets remained. The trek north had become a running battle. The Zalosians didn't tire, didn't negotiate, didn't stop. They came in waves, coordinated, intelligent, relentless. Alara had used every trick, false trails, corpse bombs, redirected predators, but the Queen was learning, adapting. Each trap worked once, then never again. By dawn of day 27, the survivors had reached the extraction beacon's foothills. Below them, a valley stretched to the landing zone, and filling that valley, ranked like soldiers, stood 5,000 Zalosian warriors. Kor sat down on a rock. We're dead. Alara didn't sit. She was staring at the valley, but her mind was somewhere else, back on Earth, in the ruins of Chicago, watching her mother negotiate with a raider gang using nothing but a radio and a bag of antibiotics. They have a hierarchy, she said slowly. The warriors follow the queen follows the nest follows. She pulled out the molted carapace and pressed her nose to it. Beneath the decay, beneath the musk, a single chemical signature, royal pheromone. The queen wasn't just a leader, she was a receiver. Somewhere in that valley, hidden underground, was the true architect, a brood brain, immobile, hyperintelligent, controlling every Zalosian within range. Kill the brain and the warriors would revert to animal instinct. Not a victory, but a distraction. I need a volunteer, Ilara said. Tilan, the young Vrix who had been trembling since day one, stepped forward. Me. Ilara almost argued. Then she saw Tilan's eyes, not fear anymore. Resolve. The brood brain will be in the center of the valley, underground. I'll lead a diversion at the east ridge. You take 3 others and dig down from the west. Once you're inside, you don't fight. You plant these. She handed over her remaining acid grenades. The brain controls the queen through chemical signals. Destroy its pheromone glands and the queen goes blind. And you? Tilan asked. Ilara picked up a Zalosian spear. I'm going to have a conversation. The diversion worked barely. Ilara and her 5 decoys drew the bulk of the warriors to the east ridge, fighting a retreating battle up a narrow defile. She lost 2 more there, pulled down by spears and dragged into the chittering mass. But Tilan made it. The Vrix and her team dug through soft volcanic soil, breached the brood brain's chamber, and planted the grenades. The explosion was silent, underground, muffled by meters of earth, but the effect was immediate. Every Zalosian warrior froze. Their eyes went dark. Then, one by one, they turned and began attacking each other, not with coordination but with mindless hunger. The queen herself staggered, her mandibles twitching, her dozens of eyes rolling in confusion. Ilara walked toward her. The queen was dying. The brood brain's death throes were flooding her system with conflicting commands. She couldn't fight, couldn't flee, could only watch as the small pink creature climbed onto her thorax, knelt, and pressed a hand to her primary nerve cluster. You're not a monster, Ilara whispered. You're a slave like them. She gestured to the cadets. Like us, but I can free you. The queen's mandibles quivered. For the first time she spoke, not chittering but galactic standard, broken and ancient. How can a pest free a god? Ilara pulled out her knife, reached into the queen's wounded nerve cluster, and with surgical precision, severed the brood brain's final control filament. The queen screamed, and then, for the first time in centuries, thought her own thoughts. The rescue ship's signal came through at midnight of day 29. Extraction in 12 hours. Hold your position. There were 8 cadets left, 8 out of 50. Ilara sat apart from them on a ridge overlooking the valley. The Zalosian queen, she had named herself SS Sithra, lay coiled behind her, her thorax still leaking fluid from where Ilara had cut out the control filament. Around them, the remaining warriors stood in a loose perimeter, docile now, their minds their own. But not all of them. The brood brain had been one node. There were others, and they had noticed the death. They come, SS Sithra whispered, her mandibles clicking in sorrow. The other brains, they will burn this valley to stop you. Ilara had known. This was never a rescue mission, not really. The Federation had sent them here to die, to test a weapon. The extraction ship was just a camera. How long? She asked. 3 hours. Not enough time. The cadets were wounded, exhausted, out of ammunition. The Zalosian loyalists numbered only 200 against what would be thousands. Ilara stood, walked back to the camp. Kor saw her face and understood. You're going to stay. I'm going to buy you time. She pulled out a map, her map, the one she'd been drawing since day one, every tunnel, every predator den, every geothermal vent. The ship lands at the northern plateau. You have 8 hours to reach it. Follow this route, it goes through the acid flats. The other brains won't follow you there. And you? Tilan asked. The young Vrix had become Alara's shadow, her hands stained with Xylosian blood and soil. "I'll hold the pass." Alara pointed to a narrow canyon 2 clicks south. "One person with the queen's pheromones can draw the entire hive there. You'll have a clear run." "That's suicide," Kor said. "That's math." She didn't say goodbye. She hugged T-Lan briefly, fiercely, and then she walked down the ridge with SS Sithra beside her. The battle for the pass lasted 6 hours. Alara fought like nothing the Xylosians had ever seen. Not with strength, with gravity. She used the terrain as a weapon, collapsing cliffs, redirecting acid streams, setting fire to the fungus fields. She killed with patience, with precision, with the cold fury of a girl who had watched her world die and promised herself she would never be prey again. SS Sithra died at hour 4, taking 100 warriors with her in a final, explosive release of venom. Alara fought on alone. By hour 6, her spear was broken, her knife was gone, her uniform was shredded, and she was using a Xylosian arm bone as a club. The pass was clogged with bodies, friend and foe indistinguishable. The rescue ship's engines roared overhead. She looked up, saw the ramp descending, saw T-Lan screaming at her from the opening, reaching out. "Geo!" Alara roared. The ship lifted. The cadets, 7 now, watched her shrink below, standing atop a mountain of the dead, alone. And then the hive surged over her. 6 months later, the Galactic Federation Assembly convened in emergency session. The topic, Xylos 9. The rescue mission's footage had been classified, but whispers leaked. A human cadet, unarmed, had held a pass against 5,000 Xylosian warriors. A human cadet had killed a brood brain. A human cadet had died screaming alone so that 7 aliens could live. The Federation Council, ancient beings from a dozen species, had prepared a memorial, a medal, a speech. They didn't get to give it. The assembly hall's main doors opened, guards shouted, and then they fell silent. Alara Vance walked in. She was thinner. Her left arm ended in a Xylosian-crafted prosthetic, chitin and biosteel fused to bone. Her face bore new scars, one across her left eye, now milky white but still seeing. She wore not a uniform but robes, woven from Xylosian silk, embroidered with the glyphs of a hive queen. Behind her walked 12 Xylosian warriors, not mindless drones but guards, their mandibles lowered in deference. The assembly erupted. "Impossible, she's dead, that's a Xylosian puppet." Alara walked to the central podium, pulled out a data crystal, and inserted it. The hologram above showed a treaty, signed in blood and venom and ink, between Alara Vance, citizen of Xylos 9, and the combined brood brains of the southern continent. "You abandoned us," she said, her voice calm, amplified across the hall. 50 cadets, you knew the survival rate. You sent us to die so you could study the Xylosians' combat tactics. You wanted weapons data." "Silence." "I gave them something better." She tapped the treaty. "Trade, medicine, technology, in exchange for peace. The Xylosians aren't monsters. They're refugees. Their own homeworld was destroyed by a plague. They came to Xylos 9 to die, and you treated them like animals." An elder counselor stood, trembling with rage. "You have no authority." "I have the authority of someone who killed their queen and then brought her back to life." Alara's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. SS Sithra's hive is mine now, and the other hives are watching. They want peace, but if the Federation refuses, she smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Then I'll teach them war." The assembly voted that night. Unanimous. Xylos 9 was reclassified from Death World to Protected Sanctuary. The cadets who survived were decorated, not for surviving, but for following a human girl into hell and back. T-Lan stood outside the assembly hall afterward, waiting. When Alara emerged, the young Vrix fell to her knees. "Get up," Alara said, tired, gentle. "I can't," T-Lan whispered. "You're not a cadet anymore, you're a legend." Ilara looked at her prosthetic arm, at the scars, at the Xylosian guards waiting patiently behind her. "No," she said, "I'm just the one who didn't quit." She offered Tilan her hand. "Now get up, we have work to do." And in the distance, on the deadliest planet in the galaxy, the Xylosian hives began to sing, a new song, a human song.